Hi, this is Douglas E. Welch with the Gardener's Notebook, with this Gardener's Notebook short. We're out here today in the garden, basically being cheap. You may notice that this soaker hose, where I've cut it here, some animal, whether it was a rat or a raccoon or something, seemed to want to really get to the water that was left in the soaker hose, and they ended up chewing this large hole right in the soaker hose. The fact is, I lost another one recently due to the same problem. It hasn't recurred, thank goodness, but unfortunately it takes a nice 50-foot soaker hose and makes it absolutely worthless if it has a hole that large in it. So instead of replacing the entire hose, I'm going cheap, and you'll see the hose mender little adapter here that I picked up at my local hardware store. And basically what it does is it's two ends with some pressure fittings. We'll put a piece into this end, we'll tighten the fittings, we'll put a piece in that end, tighten the fittings, and basically we'll have our hose back in working order. The fact is, a 50-foot soaker hose is going to be, probably at least $15, maybe $20. This hose mender ended up being about $2.18 with tax. So even if this hose doesn't last for several years, it will definitely be cheaper than replacing the whole thing right now. Now, one of the first things we do is we loosen up the screws on this coupler so that it can be spread apart and then slip off the internal piece that goes inside the hose. There's also this little plastic attachment that keeps the whole thing together, and we'll just snip that off with a pair of side cutters. So here we have all three parts separated, and basically this piece right here, you'll have to forgive me the shakiness here. I'm shooting with one hand and demonstrating with the other. That's going to go into each end of the hose here, and this compression fitting will tighten over it. Now, one of the things you need to do, and the first time you do this you'll sort of figure it out, but you have to open up this fitting, slip it over the end of the hose first, then put the insert in, then you can tighten it down. Otherwise it will not get by this little flange that's on the middle of the adapter. So here we are, we've got one end of the adapter in the end of the hose. We have our coupling ready to come up to the little flange there, tighten that down to make a waterproof seal. We'll do exactly the same thing with the other end. Now, just to give you a hint, each time I do this, it can be somewhat of a hassle to get this flange back in the hose, get the adapter, I should say, back in the hose. Pushing, twisting, you can heat up the hose a little bit just to make it a little more pliable. I've used a screwdriver to kind of widen the opening, and in this case what worked best was taking my pair of side cutters, holding the hose in one hand and simply banging on the adapter on this end to push it into the hose, and that actually seemed to work fairly well. Then finally we just tighten these screws down. They bring those clamps down to seal against the insert, and it should be good to go. And here we go, everything back and dripping as normally. So sometimes you need to realize you don't have to replace an entire system just to get it working again. Sometimes doing things on the cheap and easy is the way to go. That's it for now. I'm Douglas E. Welch. Thanks for joining us. For the more tech geek inclined of you out there, just to let you know, this episode was shot entirely on a new iPhone 4 using their high definition built-in video camera application. So let me know what you think. I wanted to get it out in the garden and give it a little test. For more information on a gardener's notebook, visit douglasewelch.com/AGN. Again, that's douglasewelch.com/AGN. Talk to you later, and get out in your garden.